And I think we are live. So let's double check. So everyone in everyone in the chat, please drop me a 1 if we have a connection, because yes, it looks like we are live now. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to the audience for your attendance. And most especially, thank you to the Muslim apologist, Menj, and to Thaddeus for joining me in this conversation.
Likewise.
Yeah. And yeah, so guys, thank you all for being here. And so we're here to discuss not what is the Sharia. We want to have an open, transparent, hopefully fair, balanced discussion, something without animosity, not a debate, not a shouting match. What we want to do is to show, look, this is what the Sharia says. These are what these laws say, based on the consensus of the Muslim scholars, based on what is in these legal texts of these 4 schools of jurisprudence, so that we can inform the audience, say, look, this is what we have, and this is what Muslim scholars are saying, or rather, this is what Muslim apologists are saying. And often the two are, let's just say, widely divergent. So we want to be able to inform the audience, have them make a decision based on presenting the facts, and get perspective from Menj. So any thoughts from you, Menj? I'll let you open.
Yeah, so basically, just as a brief recap, Sharia consists of 4 components in Islam. So it's the Quran and the Sunnah, the Hadith, Ijma, the consensus of the ulama, and the last part, sometimes there's a dispute for this, but generally everyone agrees on it, it's Qiyas. So this is where we derive Islamic law from, okay? So the discussion of Ijma usually is called fiqh or jurisprudence. It is part of Sharia, but it's not necessarily Sharia, all right? So Sharia encompasses all 4 components, and fiqh is just one small part of it.
Yeah, so I'm going to be using here the Encyclopedia of Islam, which is the universal gold standard, both in Islamic universities as well as in the West. It's over a century old. It's written by numerous scholars, both Eastern and Western experts, so Muslims as well. We mentioned the Ijma, right? And so to define some terms, Ijma, it is the third and in practice the most important of the sources of legal knowledge. It is the unanimous agreement of this is the community of scholars on a regulation imposed by Allah. Technically, Ijma is the unanimous doctrine and opinion of the recognized religious authorities, right? So would you agree with this, Menj? Or is that something that...
I don't have any problems with the definitions. I think they're pretty much accurate as far as
Okay, great. So as long as we use commonly accepted definitions. And Thaddeus, thank you for being here today. Your thoughts, and what would you like to get out of this? What do you think we can achieve here today?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on today. I think that this should be a very interesting discussion. I like to promote dialogue between Muslims and Christians. I believe that the truth should be apparent, that if you have truth on your side, you have nothing to be afraid of. So I love to have these kinds of discussions. Lloyd didn't tell me exactly what we'd be going over, which is perfectly fine. So I'm here to learn and to discuss with our Muslim friends.
Yeah, so yeah, Thaddeus and I did not have a discussion in advance, so this is not us attempting to gang up. So, this is just hopefully a free conversation. This is the term fiqh, understanding, knowledge, intelligence, the technical term for jurisprudence. And this is the science of religious law in Islam. And you've got the laws regulating ritual and religious observances containing orders and prohibitions, right? It includes the field of family law, the law of inheritance, of property, of contracts, obligations, criminal law, and procedure. It also constitutional law and laws regulating the administration of the state and the conduct of war. So I think we can see here that in terms of law, Islam has a very detailed legal system that also happens to have civil and state law. Would that be something you would agree with based on this definition, Menj?
Nothing that I can disagree with, and it's pretty much generic. It's basically a generic definition of fiqh, so no issues there.
Yeah, I mean, these things can be expanded for all of those. If you check in my description box, you'll find that we've got here. This is expanded in volume 2 of the Encyclopedia of Islam, page 886, and volume 9, page 322, column B, second column. All right. So Menj, any opening thoughts? Anything you want to state? Because I've said already that we have Muslim apologists saying one thing, and then we've got these scholars, the actual scholars who've written the fiqh, who are considered the mujtahids mutlaq, or the absolute scholars, who founded the four schools of fiqh. They have very clear definitions, especially within the ijma, the consensus. And very often we find that these scholars fully and totally contradict the statements of Muslim apologists. I mean, so what is your position? You said you are an apologist, not really a dawah-gandist or dawah. Can you just explain what your thoughts are and take from there?
Yeah. So just as I said earlier before we started the stream, I don't consider myself to be for Islamic propagation. So I don't expect anyone to be Muslim simply by consuming my material or by my, whatever that I say. I'm strictly an apologist, meaning, well, the dictionary definition of apologetics, which is to defend a certain ideology, a certain faith. So in my case, it would be Islam. And now with regards to why faith, there are different opinions with regards to the so-called, I don't know, you want to call them Da'is, whatever. Da'is, I suppose, propagators of Islam. We have that of the ulama, of those who have, come up with this fiqh understanding. Well, fiqh is always fluid, is always changing according to situations. So if a new situation comes up, there will always be a new fiqh ruling that will, override the previous ruling, or will expand upon the previous understanding of a certain issue. So fiqh is basically a human understanding of the divine law, okay, which is derived from strictly the Quran and the Hadith. So that is why you will see differences in these fiqh understandings.
Yeah, I want to mention a couple of things on that point. And so we've got ijtihad mutlaq. So this is ijtihad, it's effort, but it's reasoning used to determine a point of law, right? So mutlaq is absolute. So technically this would mean perfect reasoning. So in law, the creative act of ijtihad, or reasoning, through which the founding imams, that's the four imams who founded the four schools of fiqh, derived from revealed sources a systematic structure of law. Now, something I want to bring up here is, I want to go to the top and I'll go to Imam Shafi. So Imam Shafi says, now he's the mujtahid mutlaq, the absolute scholar. He says, the Quran texts are couched in very general terms, which it is the function of the Sunnah to expand and elucidate, to make Allah's meaning absolutely clear. So we know that not everything that is pertinent to Islamic law is found within the Quran. So therefore, you've got the Sunnah, and then you've finally got the ijma, the consensus of the scholars, which determines this is the final interpretation, the final understanding, because you can't have individual Muslims running around making definitions on their own or making law on their own. There has to be a hierarchy of scholars who are authoritative. You agree with that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that you're aware of this, but we have the four madhabs. Okay, currently we have four. Back in the day, there were more than four. So the four major madhabs are Maliki, Hanbali, Shafi'i, and Hanafi. Okay, so I adhere to the Shafi'i school. So most of my understanding of faith will be derived from Imam Shafi'i. But there are also those who follow other madhab who will not follow Shafi'i. They will follow their respective madhabs. Okay, like the followers of Imam Malik, they will follow the Maliki fiqh. So there are things sometimes in the Maliki fiqh which do not agree with Shafi'i, because we have to see the chronology. First was Imam Malik, then he was Ahmad ibn Hanbal was the first madhab, the first person who came out with jurisprudence, followed by Imam al-Malik, who was the student of Abu Hanifa, and he was followed by Shafi'i. Okay, Shafi'i was the student of Imam Malik, and then the last of them was Abu Hanifa, who was the student of Imam Shafi'i. So each of them have their own understanding, and sometimes they even go against their own teacher. For example, I have here just to show. This is the Muwatta Imam Malik. So this is basically the source of Maliki fiqh. So there are things in Maliki fiqh that I do follow, and there are things which I don't, because my madhab, Imam Shafi'i, will probably disagree with them, and I find sometimes that Imam Shafi'i's rulings are much more stronger than Imam Malik, so I would follow those. So this is how it works. Yeah.
Okay, correct. Thaddeus, any thoughts you want to throw in before we go on?
Yeah, just real quick. You mentioned that you usually follow one school, but you sometimes disagree and follow a different. Could you explain that? My understanding is that most Muslims have an opinion where, as long as one of the four schools supports it, you're fine. You can kind of mix and pick and choose. Is that correct?
I'm kind of mixed because I'm a Salafi, so I follow the manhaj as Salaf. So the concept of manhaj as Salaf is that we take a look at all the madhabs, all legal rulings, not even those in the major madhabs. We see everything holistically from a Quranic and Sunnah point of view, and those rulings which we feel or which we see are legally strong enough to be followed, then we will follow that. So I am basically, you could say that I'm not traditionally a part of one of these madhabs. I'm pretty much encompassing all of it. So although I would say anchor-wise, I would still generally consider myself to be mostly Shafi'i, because the rulings I'm familiar with are Shafi'i. So yes, I would generally follow Shafi'i rulings. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So I want to bring this up from the Reliance. This is the Shafi text. All right. Now, of course, we've got the ijma. Now we've got the ijma, the consensus. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't have a very high opinion of this work, because Umdat as-Salik is something that we don't adhere to here in this part of the world, especially in the
okay. Hold on. So fine. So let's start from first principles then with this. The Reliance of the Traveler and the Tools of the Worshipper is the full name. It is the classical manual of Islamic sacred law. Okay. And of course, this thing is also one that is vetted by Al-Nawawi, right? Now, Nuhamim Kala here, highly qualified scholar. And let us go then to the...
I don't consider him to be a scholar.
That's fine. I mean, so that's okay. Let's have a look here. So in the introduction, this thing states the warrant of this Sheikh Durubi. Then you've got the warrant of Sheikh Ali Salman.
Yeah, these are all ijazah. Yeah.
Then you've got report of the International Institute of Islamic Thought, which is technically a Muslim Brotherhood organization, right? But that's the International Institute. And then you've got the certificate of Al-Azhar University. Okay. Then you've got the certificate of Al-Azhar. Now, I will get here. So Al-Azhar University is the most prestigious Islamic university in the world. This is where Barack Obama went to have his talk to the Muslim world when he became president. And Al-Azhar Islamic Research Academy, they certify this. Just wait 1 second. He certifies this document here. And it says here, we certify that the above mentioned translation corresponds to the Arabic original and conforms to the practice and faith of the Orthodox Sunni community, right? There is no objection to printing it and circulating it. So we have here authentication from a very highly authoritative Islamic source.
Hello.
Yeah, you there?
Hello.
Can you hear us? Thaddeus, can you hear me? Are you doing okay?
I can hear you fine. I am having some trouble with Muslim Apologists audio. So
Menj, yeah.
Did my internet fail?
Sorry, you're back now, I think.
Yeah, I think your connection was bad there for a minute, but it seems to be okay now.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened, so I hope it doesn't happen again. But even if it does, try to reconnect again. All right.
Yeah. Now, look, if things are, I mean, look, let's do our best while we're here, and we can always reschedule in January or something if we have serious issues. But what we have here, I mean, now from our perspective, from a Western perspective, we've got Al-Azhar University, amongst other highly known, authoritative sources that are saying that this source is authoritative. Now, Al-Azhar is very high in the list of authority. It produces thousands of imams a year. It is a 1,000-year-old Islamic university. and it produces scholars from all four schools of fiqh, right? They are saying that this is authentic. It conforms to Sunni orthodoxy. So, Thaddeus, your thoughts on this? I mean, does this disqualify it, or does this tell us this is good to use?
Yeah, I mean, of course, any individual
No,
can
it doesn't mean anything to
make
me because
their
I don't consider.
yeah. So any
Yeah,
individual can
I
make their own decisions.
consider.
Apparently, Menj is not a huge fan of reliance, but it seems to be one of the most well-respected, probably the most well-respected of the Sharia texts. So I think it's a good place to start. Doesn't mean that you can't look at other texts, but I think it would not be beneficial to ignore it.
And this is a Shafi text.
Again.
Yes, you there?
Again.
Are you there? Tell you what, Menj, disconnect and then reconnect. Menj, maybe
Abang ni nak cakap pasal unda asli bodoh. Pakailah fix lain, tak ada fix lain ke kalau nak pakai. I'm back again. Sorry about the internet. I really don't know what's happening.
Yeah, you can always try to disconnect and reconnect if that helps, and if that will help you. So look, this is a Shafi text.
I don't think that
and this is okay. Right, so look, let's just jump into the deep end. Okay, I'm not here to gotcha you.
Right.
Understand these are issues that you're familiar with. You know these are issues. I'd just like to get your perspective, right? Because I will be referring to things. I mean, this is not going to be. Okay, hold on. Let me just do one thing from the Reliance. It says here the four Sunni schools of Islamic law, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, and Hanbali, are identical in approximately 75% of their legal conclusions. That would be the ijma. And it says there are even variances within a single family. There are differing viewpoints reflected in even a single school. Right? The Reliance of the Traveller is one of the finest and most reliable short works on Shafi jurisprudence. A school with perhaps fewer scholarly differences on rulings than others because its main resource is the recension of Imam Nawawi, the great 13th century Shafi scholar and jurisprudent. So we've got here these Shafis who are saying this is a reliable resource. So yeah, your thoughts on that before we go on?
Yeah, because as I explained earlier, we don't have this in this part of the world because we rely directly from the sources itself. We have Imam Nawawi's work directly translated into the Malay language. We have Imam Shafi'i's Kitab al-Umm in not just Arabic as well, but in Malay as well. We have Subuhus Salam. It's basically a compilation of hadiths compiled by a Shafi'i scholar, whom we also rely on for fiqh understanding. We have so many other works actually, and even local ones which kind of escape my mind at the moment. But basically, we don't really rely on this kind of material because we already have our homegrown material.
80% of Muslims speak no Arabic.
Sorry?
Yeah, let's not forget 80% of Muslims speak no Arabic, right? Huge millions of them speak English and other languages. And of course, this is the very first of these texts to be translated into English because it was so important. There's a reason why so much time and money is spent in translating particular texts, because those are the important texts. Thaddeus, a thought from you before we continue?
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if the Muslim apologist doesn't particularly like this text, he says go directly to the sources, but he also, in his introduction, told us that the consensus is very important. So, I mean, which is it? Do you go directly to the Quran and draw your own interpretations, or do you look at the consensus of those who have come before? You seem to want to have it both ways. So I'm not really sure what you mean by, in this part of the world, we don't look at sources like Reliance, we go directly to the primary sources. You can't have consensus without looking at what the scholars have said.
No, actually, I need to clarify that. What I mean is, in this part of the world, we have our own ulama, we have our own homegrown scholars who have their own fiqh manual, who have derived their own fiqh, their own jurisprudence from the primary sources, which is basically the Quran and Sunnah and the previous ulama that came before him. So we have our own homegrown material. We don't rely on English translations. We don't need
Does this material contradict the material in the Umdat al-Salik?
I've read Umdat al-Salik, and there are many things which actually contradict with what we have here in this region. Yeah. So, and there are many things in Umdat al-Salik which I don't agree with as well. So, we can go through those, of course.
Well, look, I mean, doesn't that lead us to say, okay, well, look, if these guys over here believe A and those guys over there believe B, then and these are the scholars. I mean, these are legitimate Muslim scholars who are revered in Islam. Then we can say, okay, well, so how can you then claim that one group of Muslims is wrong if that's their belief based on their scholars, and then another group? So then who's got authority? You know, how can you say that our understanding is wrong if we are reading one set and that's what they say, and we go, we can't accept that? Do you understand? This leads to a contradiction. That this gives us a problem.
Doesn't cause any problems for me, because you have to keep in mind that Umdat al-Salik was written, I think it was in the 13th century. So things back then were different. So the rules and understanding of fiqh were different. So compare that to today, you know, contemporary times. Obviously, things have changed a lot, and you know.
Okay, then isn't Allah's law permanent? I mean, this is the law of Allah. This is based on the Sunnah of Muhammad and on the law of Allah, right? Derived from the Sharia. So this should be permanent. This is Allah's perfect law for all time.
The law is permanent, but the is not.
Sorry, your connection, you're breaking up there. Sorry, you're me and Jay, maybe disconnect and then reconnect, because you.
But how do you adapt to changing changing?
Me and Jay, you're breaking up very badly. Can you disconnect maybe and reconnect, because you gobbled the audio. I can't hear you. Thaddeus, your thoughts?
Yeah. So so Allah claims over and over again in the Quran that His word is perfectly clear. If in theory all of the law of Islam is derived from the Quran and from the sayings of Muhammad, should be pretty strong consensus. It shouldn't be that different from one school to another, one part of the world to another, one region to another, whatever. So I'm a little confused as to why it's like, oh, I don't want to look at that source because we have different sources here in Malaysia. They probably say basically the same thing, but we want to go with our homegrown sources rather than these Middle Eastern sources. And I get it, kind of, right? I get that you want to support locals and whatnot, but it's the same law. So where is the objection coming from? I'm not really sure.
Me and Jay, can you try again, please? Because very few of us could hear your audio earlier. Me and Jay, can you hear me?
I think he may have dropped.
Yeah, he's not connected. Yeah, his connection must be bad. He had an audio issue when we first started. I could barely hear him when we originally were backstage. He's back now. Let me add him. Hey there, welcome back.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's happening on the internet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a secondary internet connection here with my 5G. So if this happens again, I will get it connected to my phone. All right. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it happens sometimes.
Yeah, really, my deepest apologies for this. I don't know what's happening. It usually doesn't happen like this, right? Yeah, it's not intentional.
It happens to me. It happens to Thaddeus. It happens to all of us. It's one of those things.
Really sorry about this. Okay, so I'm setting this up as a hotspot in case this happens again. Hopefully, my internet will automatically connect to my phone, so I won't get shut out again. Yeah?
So just to say again, can you understand the issue? The concern we would have is if you disagree with a scholarly text, a legitimate scholarly text from legitimate scholars, which is endorsed by Al-Azhar, and then other scholars agree with it, who do we believe? I understand if there's that. So it's really difficult. We have to believe someone. So do we believe you, or do we believe these long-established scholars? And remember, the scholars who go back closer to Muhammad's time are supposed to be the greater scholars, the more authoritative.
The thing about is that you don't rely on just one. Hello, testing. Can you hear me? Did you get what I said just now?
Yes.
Yeah.
You said we don't just have one, I think is what you said.
Sorry, did you get my... Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Try again, please.
Yeah, all right. Okay. So can I continue? Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, what I was saying is that you don't just rely on just one single fiqh manual called Umda Salik to derive your fiqh or your jurisprudence understanding of Islam. There's so many fiqh works, contemporary ones, which touches on current issues, modern issues. So why the reliance on excuse the pun, on a text that was written in the 13th century, which
Well, the
almost
Quran was written even
nobody
before
uses
that. Why
anymore.
rely on that?
The Quran is a
The
divine word
Quran's
of
even
God, so
older.
no. You see, you have to make the distinction. You see, so the Quran and the Sunnah is basically that is unquestionable, right? So this, like I mentioned earlier, the Sharia consists of 4 parts, right? So the first 2 parts, the Quran and Sunnah, you don't touch those. Those are pretty much something that you derive Islamic law from. However, for things which the Quran and the Sunnah do not explicitly say, how do you get your understanding or your fiqh or how do you get your rulings from? So that is where
So what text is accepted by Muslims? If we remember, we know that Islam has a legal system. It is a fully established system of law. But now, which book is the one we use? If everyone's disagreeing with everyone else, then do you have chaos?
Definitely not just one As-Salik, right? So there's so many books.
Okay, so let's look at this. I'm gonna choose this specifically, this particular book. All right.
Yeah,
this one is a law on marriage. When a man has had sexual intercourse with a girl under the age of 9 years, and he has ruptured the parts referring to her vagina, it is unlawful for him to have further connection with her, but she is not released from her ties if connected with him by marriage or by slavery. If no rupture has taken place, the prohibition is not incurred according to the most valid opinion. Now, I think this is pretty clear what it's talking about. It's pretty obvious. There's a reason I've chosen this particular book. How are we as Westerners to accept this?
By the way, what is the title of this work? Yeah, sorry, what is the title of this work?
This one is called, let me go to the beginning. Yeah. This one is a translation of a book that was very popular in Pakistan and India. It is down here. This one is... Let
me guess, it's the Hidayah, right?
No, it's not the Hidayah. It's just waiting for it to come up. Come on. I hate when my...
Yeah.
Good grief.
What in the world? That's so weird.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Digest of Mohammedan Law. This is called the Digest of Mohammedan Law. Let me actually just...
What's the title in Arabic?
This is a very common text that was translated because this was used in India and Pakistan and that part of the world. Okay. You can see there I've got it. Now,
yeah, it doesn't really tell me where this is from. It's just a translation of...
Yeah, well, okay, so let me show you something else. Let me show you this then while I'm here. Okay, the reason I chose this is a paper by 2 professors of law in Pakistan, right? A genealogical analysis of Islamic law books relied on in the courts of Pakistan. And then they mention 4 books that are actually, on the basis of our analysis, the following books are found to be relied upon more frequently by the courts to derive authentic points of Islamic law on a particular issue. And here they specify Hidayah and the Digest of Mohammedan Law. We've just seen the Digest of Mohammedan Law. And the Digest of Mohammedan Law, as we saw, explicitly discusses that men can have sexual intercourse with children under the age of 9, as we see here, right? That sexual intercourse is permitted with a girl under the age of 9. And of course, this could lead to a fistula where her vagina is ruptured open. And yet she is married to him and also slaves. Now, this is Islamic law valid for all time, and this is in use today in Pakistani courts, according to 2 PhD professors of law, right? Muslims, both of them. Thaddeus, your thoughts before I go on, your input.
Yeah, so perhaps in a second here, Pakistan will be thrown under the bus and said that they're not good Muslims, not properly following the law. But of course, in reality, Pakistan and Afghanistan are very much Muslim nations. They very much are attempting to do what they think Muhammad commanded them to do. And as a result of reasoning things out and going through all of the same sources that any other Sharia scholar is going to look at, the Quran and the Hadith and the Sirah, they have come to the conclusion that there is no minimum age for a man to have sex with his wife, and there's no minimum age for marriage. Thus, they have to create rulings for what happens when this leads to consequences. When, to be blunt, the man is too large and his attempt to have sex with a little girl causes her to be ripped apart. And their conclusion is that he is no longer allowed to have sex with her, so he loses that privilege, but she, in fact, is still obligated to remain married to him.
Yeah. So Menj, my aim is not here to gotcha you, but we as Westerners and we as Christians have deep concerns about this. We are well aware of the Sunnah of Muhammad. We know that he married a young child, and I know that we can go through various rulings on Islam QA where it states there is no lower age limit for Muslim men to marry girls. So here you've got this in black and white. And I mean, what is your thoughts? I mean, can you see the difficulty with us accepting this and believing that this is moral? So your thoughts, please.
Well, my thoughts on this are simple. So basically, this ruling, I need to look into the actual work, of course, but from a cursory reading, I don't disagree. I don't agree with this. Okay, totally, it's totally un-Islamic, and it goes against fiqh understanding. Even it goes against the fiqh understanding of Imam Ash-Shafi'i. Okay, because Imam Ash-Shafi'i has clearly defined that only someone who has reached puberty could actually marry and have sexual relations, for without which the marriage will not be valid, because only someone who has reached puberty could give consent. So in Islam, marriage with consent from the woman is very, very important, especially in Shafi'i. So I'm pretty sure this is the same thing for. I could check Imam Malik if I had.
Okay. No, look, I understand, and I appreciate your input.
Yeah. I'm pretty much sure this is valid across the board. So
yeah. So can I just ask him what his source for Shafi saying puberty? Because I've never seen any Shafi source that says that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to refer to the books, because I don't have the. I need to really dig through it, right? Because I didn't prepare for this, right? Because understanding is that we're supposed to have a casual conversation, so it's not supposed to be anything deep.
Okay,
right?
yeah, fair enough. That's my bad there, because I was just assuming that was the topic, but obviously I didn't set it up, so that is my bad. I didn't mean to try to push you on that.
Yeah, look, I mean, the issue is that, and Menj is right. To the audience, none of us had a chance to discuss in advance. So all three of us are coming here and we're sort of finding our way, right? I didn't speak to Thaddeus. I didn't speak to Menj prior to this. We didn't have an opportunity to speak. So the aim was, and I did say though to Menj, we would present this evidence, and these are the sources of our concerns. And we'd like to get his input. And I mean, if he needs time to examine this evidence, then go back, do research, and we come back and we have another talk about this. That would be great. I think that would be appreciated. So,
yeah, we could even set up a debate on it. I mean, if it comes to that, but it's up to you. Yeah,
I'm not interested in debates. I mean, I've seen too many debates go south and nothing gets decided. It's just a word game, and I would rather just have a transparent, open conversation. We give the evidence to everyone. The audience can make up their own minds. They can look at the evidence and decide.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that that's very fair. We'll present some things. We'll ask some questions, and you can do all the research you want, and then get back to us. We don't need answers today.
I
So
mean,
so
basically all the research is behind me. It's just that I need to actually find the information, and I have too many books.
yeah,
as it is.
and that's
So,
perfectly fine. I think that's a perfectly reasonable answer to say, I don't know off the top of my head, but give me some time and I'll look it up.
No, I'm not expecting him to. I mean, yeah. So look, for instance, I'm going to go through a handful of quotes. So understand, right? We read this, we find these texts, we read this. When I was doing counterterrorism briefly, this is one of the texts that was used by ISIS. Understand? So this was one of the texts that was being taught.
Yeah,
So,
you need to
so the
keep in
Guardian
mind, by
must
the way.
marry her to him. Sorry, please go on.
Sorry, just to clarify about my position with regards to ISIS. So basically, the consensus is that they are a Khawarij group. So pretty much out of the four of Islam, and they don't represent Islam in any way possible. Yeah. Even in my part of the world, sorry.
No, I mean, we would obviously disagree, but that's understood. We can always discuss this again later and, present evidence. That's what I really want. I don't want to get into a gotcha situation. We want to present evidence, and let everyone see the evidence for themselves. So look, I'm going to go through a few references, right? The guardian must marry her to him, whether prepubescent or not. Okay? You can see the Arabic here on the right-hand side. Let's continue. A guardian may marry his prepubescent daughter to someone. Okay, he may not marry his prepubescent daughter to someone for less than the amount typically received as marriage payment by similar brides, nor marry his prepubescent son to a female. So you have to pay the full dowry for a prepubescent child as you would for an adult. I'll continue. Okay. So they speak of the divorce of a wife who is prepubescent. Okay, I'll continue. Awaiting, this is on Quran 65:4. So this states here a woman's post-marital, so her waiting period after marriage, called the iddah. There is no waiting period for a woman divorced before having had sexual intercourse with her husband. And then a waiting period is obligatory for a woman divorced after intercourse, whether the husband and the wife are prepubescent, have reached puberty, or one is prepubescent and the other is not. And intercourse here means copulation, defined elsewhere in the text. So this explicitly states that you have prepubescent wives who have to wait to see if they are pregnant after sex. And this is a section on marriage, right? Post-marital. Now, again, we know this is the ijma on how 65:4 was interpreted within the Sharia. As Christians, we find this very difficult to accept. For us, this is immoral. It is also illegal. I'll let Thaddeus comment before, and then we'll come to you, Emmy and Jay. Thaddeus?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crystal clear here in this text that you can marry before puberty. I'll be brief.
Yep. Emmy and Jay, your thoughts? I mean, can you see the difficulty for us here?
Yeah, I mean, this is, you have to keep in mind this text was written in 13th century. I'm not sure whether they do practice prepubescent marriages in the 13th century, but again, this goes against Shafi because you need to have consent in order for the marriage to take place. If both of them are prepubescent, to me that goes against the Sharia as well, or the understanding of faith as well, because the purpose of marriage. What is the purpose of marriage? The purpose of marriage is to procreate and to have children and to build a family, right? To conserve the family unit. So if both of them are prepubescent, that goes against the objective of the purpose of marriage. So that is totally contrary to the understanding of Islam. So
remember, this was
I totally
authorized.
I totally disagree with it. Yeah.
No, and I'm glad you do, but this was authorized by Al-Azhar. Al-Azhar is very influential. I mean, one of their scholars has a weekly radio show listened to by 60 million people. That's a lot of people that are listening to a group that authorizes this as authentic Sunni Islam, right? The waiting period for a woman who does not menstruate, whether prepubescent or postmenopausal, is 3 months. They are speaking of prepubescence here, right? I'm going to look up one more word. Actually, hold on. Puberty. Okay, so actually, no, before I get to that, I want to finish let me just tackle this again. And prepubescent. There's one more reference I want to show you, and this is for us very disturbing, right? It's not finding it, so let me go find something else. Okay, here. A husband who accuses his wife of adultery is disciplined, right?
No.
And the husband is disciplined, especially when adultery is impossible, such as when the person accused is a mere infant. Here, a man has an infant wife, an infant. An infant is defined in this text as a baby in the cradle, right? In the cradle. And here, someone is accusing his wife of having sex with another man. And he can be punished if the wife is a mere infant because she could not have taken responsibility for this because she's too young. Do you understand the concerns do you understand the moral issue here? Thaddeus, your thoughts before we go to Emmy and Jay.
Yeah, we don't practice this in the Muslim world, so it's irrelevant.
Well, I would say it's not irrelevant. Whether you practice it or not, it's not irrelevant because this is supposedly authoritative law. You could say, let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's say that this was authoritative for the 13th century or when exactly it was first written. That's equally problematic to me. Whether it is today or in the past, there was Muslims who were looking at the Islamic source texts, and they're coming to the conclusion based on those texts that this type of behavior is permissible. You can say that we don't do it today because we're more sophisticated and our culture tells us not to and whatnot, but that doesn't take away the problem here that your God is giving commands, your prophet's giving commands that very educated, intelligent Muslims are interpreting as being able to have sex with children.
No, I think you're a bit confused here, Thaddeus, because this is basically a faith ruling. So this is the human interpretation of what the prophet and
It's an authoritative human interpretation of your text, which means your text that educated Muslim scholars of some time period were looking at the text, and this is the conclusion they were drawing. And I find that highly problematic that they can look at the text and come to this conclusion.
Yeah, so well, like I said, there's no such practices in the Muslim world now. So I would consider such understanding to be irrelevant and actually outdated. So it's totally irrelevant to me.
So look, I mean, I would love to have this conversation with you in the future. Understand? We would like you to come back with evidence, and so we can discuss this. I mean, the aim is not to got you. You are not responsible for writing this. We are here to discuss this, and you agreed to come on, and for that, I'm grateful that we have this opportunity to try to speak to an audience and say, "Hey, look."
I probably will need to dig up my Facebook, which is buried way under my power.
No, that's okay. So, I fully understand. I mean, I fully understand. We're not here to gang up on you, and I really want to be fair, and I do not expect you to have all the answers because I don't have all the answers. I don't think Thaddeus has all the answers.
Definitely not.
Okay, so another issue that we have in the Western world, of course, is the apostasy laws, death for apostasy. Now, we hear this all the time, from Ali Dawah to BBC television to you name it. All right. Now, this is apostasy from Islam.
Apostasy is pretty much clear cut for me. I mean, I totally support I totally adhere to the ruling for apostasy from Islam. So that's pretty much clear because it's derived from this hadith by the Prophet ﷺ, who said, "Man badala dinnahu faqtuluh." Whoever leaves his religion, kill him. So it's pretty much clear in meaning and context. So there's no real dispute for me there.
Okay, so can you see for us though that when you leave Christianity, no one kills you for it. When you leave Buddhism, no one murders you for it. Do you understand our concern as Westerners?
Why don't you refer to Deuteronomy? I think it was in Deuteronomy 32.
Because that is 3,000-year-old Jewish law of Moses. We are not Jews, and even the Jews don't practice that. That is law that we're in a different covenant.
So basically, you are rejecting God's law.
No, you just said that. You just said that even Sharia law was 13th century law, not law today. So are you rejecting?
Yeah, I meant certain I meant certain fiqh rulings which are specific to that particular period. Like, for example, marriage is
Thaddeus,
not
maybe I'll
fixed
let you take this
fixed in
one. I'll
stone.
let you jump into that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you give me the verse, I can say more about the verse in general. But you need to understand first that the way Jewish law worked, right? The way the laws handed down to Moses work, that they are a combination of moral laws, national laws for the particular nation of Israel, and ceremonial laws for the priesthood. Of those three, the only one that would apply today would be a moral law. A national law of Israel might have a particular purpose, but that nation has long ceased to exist. The recreation of the state in modern times in no way makes those laws binding. Ceremonial laws are done away with in the time of Christ. They point forward towards him. He is the fulfillment of the laws, but the ceremonial laws no longer have any purpose after he has come, and especially they don't even have a purpose in Judaism after the temple is destroyed in 70 AD and has never been rebuilt, because they deal with temple practices. So with those two things in mind, then we can look at specifics. But you also need to understand that the law is not comprehensive, right? It is not all encompassing. It gives general principles from which judges are expected to derive rulings for particular circumstances. So to see how the Jewish people understood the text, you would have to look at how it was actually carried out. And to the best of my knowledge, there was never a time within Judaism that they carried out a death penalty for apostasy.
Yeah. And also, if I may add to that, thanks, Thaddeus, sorry to interrupt, but also this tells us then that Islam also mandates civil law, not just moral law, civil law. So therefore, these rulings, now think about it, you just accepted this ruling, but rejected others. Now, why would one ruling be acceptable and correct, and then suddenly this one's like just wrong, and that one's right? Understand? Picking and choosing like that, that's, I mean, you're going to have to then accuse the scholars of Al-Azhar and various other scholars like the Mufti of the Jordanian army and like the Mufti of Syria and others to be incorrect. You know, their authority suddenly is now called into question versus your view of that, your opinion. Do you understand the difficulty for us?
It's not difficult for me at all, because I've read all the fiqh books that I have. Okay, there are things which I agree with, there are things which I don't agree with, and there are things which the consensus has been reached. So, like, for example, with things concerning, personal laws like marriage or things of the sort, there can be what we would refer to as khilaf, disagreements. But certain things like jurisdictional laws like this, like apostasy, like things concerning tawheed, concerning theology, those are fixed in stone. Okay, I mean, for the personal laws, you can debate those until kingdom come, and you probably will still not be able to come to a consensus. But for things like apostasy, murtad, like for thieving, for adultery, for robbing, for mass murder, so these things are fixed in stone. You can't change that, and that's where I derive my faith from. And of course, I said I could go into detail, but I wasn't prepared for it, right? So
no. Look, I'm not expecting you to go into detail. Look, I'm not expecting that, and I fully understand. You need time to think. You need time to prepare. You need time to come back with evidence. So don't worry. I'm not expecting
the idea
you
here
to.
Basically is just basically the idea here is just to casually. I'm being very casual here, so.
Yeah, I mean, I did. Look, I mean, hopefully I did explain to you. We're presenting the things that are of concern to us, right? And we'd like to get your input,
right?
And we can always come back and discuss again. I'm not looking to be
So going back to that issue with regards to apostasy, I don't think it should be a concern for those who have not apostatized from Islam. So why should it concern Christians if a person who was formerly a Muslim apostatizes?
But this leads to murder, and of course we have an issue with that because we have a new covenant.
Murder. It's not murder when it's a crime. You see, like, for example, if someone kills someone else and you arrest that person and you condemn that man to punishment by murder, would that be considered murder? You see,
we would
So
consider killing
apostasy is,
someone for leaving the church. That would be, of course, murder. In Western law, Western morals, that would
yeah,
be
we
murder.
don't
Can you see this contradiction that we have now?
we don't follow Western law. We don't acquiesce to Western law. We have our own laws. Yeah, so we are not going to bow
Yeah,
the knee. Yeah,
So,
we're going to bend the knee.
Thaddeus,
Yeah.
Yeah, so what
Thaddeus,
you're
yeah.
suggesting is that the punishment fits the crime. So if someone no longer
Exactly.
believes in
Yeah.
Allah, they are worthy
Yeah,
of death.
it's the same thing with adultery is stoning. I wholly believe in that. I know probably there will be someone in the Western audience who would cringe at me supporting lapidation, but that's what the law says. That's what they basically, that's what the fiqh says. That's the Sharia says. All right, so I have no problems with that either. So if you want to cringe,
So now
just because
think,
I support
Amy and-
lapidation
yeah.
for adultery, well.
Okay, now
So
M&J,
be it.
since you mentioned
Yeah.
stoning, if I may, just to show you something that's an interesting juxtaposition. Lots of Muslims deny stoning. Now it states here in the Sharia, he or she is stoned to death. Okay, so this is written as a ruling in this text, right?
Yeah, I
He
have
or
no
she
problems
is
with it.
stoned. But notice
Yeah.
here, a person is not considered to have the capacity to remain virginal, chaste, being virginal,
Okay.
if he or she has only had intercourse in a marriage that is invalid or is prepubescent at the time of marital intercourse. You cannot kill a girl that is prepubescent at the time of marital intercourse. But if she's older, then you can kill her by stoning her to death. But if she's
Because there's
prepubescent,
puberty.
now these two suddenly come together. Now hold on, you said you agree with stoning, but you disagree.
Yeah.
But you said this is the second ruling is not Islamic. But here they are together in this ruling. Thaddeus, maybe a thought from you before Emmy and Jay.
Yeah, like I said, I don't agree with this ruling that a prepubescent.
So you agree with half of it, one but not the other.
I would say it depends on the context. Okay, because you have to keep in mind this was written in the 13th century. Okay, I think what I understand from this, what I can derive from this, is that probably the fiqh scholar who's writing this, he wants to cover all angles, because most likely during his time there were marriages with the consent of the guardian, by the way, because back then there were marriages, one or two marriages. Even today we have this in a few families. There's someone wants to get married, but it's below the age of consent. They need to get the permission of the guardian in order to proceed with the marriage. So I believe this particular ruling actually covers those kind of areas. But on a whole, I disagree totally with the idea that someone who's a prepubescent and what is married off, is the marriage would be legal. So
maybe it's just context. Understand the difficulty. This is for us. Thaddeus, your thoughts before we go?
So I think that this ruling is actually very interesting, because regardless of whether one disagrees or agrees, I think it's very interesting, because the scholars are looking at prepubescent girls, and they're seeing that they don't really have the mental capacity. They don't have, and thus are not morally culpable for their actions. And yet they are still allowing them to be married. So it's not about, like mental maturity or some other excuse about, people matured much faster back in those times. No, that's not what's in view here at all, because the ruling itself indicates that if a girl is, married to one man, and then another man rapes her, let's be frank, she definitely doesn't have sexual desire for this man. Another man rapes her. Well, she's not culpable, because they know that she doesn't have that desire. They know that she is not in a sexual relationship intentionally, but it's still okay for that first man to marry her and have sex with her, because in Islam, there's only legal sex and illegal sex, and the marriage contract makes it legal. There is no conception of consent, right? The woman doesn't need to give any consent. She's married. She belongs to the man. She is his property. He is allowed to approach her when and how he likes, whether she wants it or not.
Amy and Jay, your thoughts before I go to the next topic?
Like I said, the circumstances change. Okay, So this ruling is probably covering all the bases. That, however, does not mean that, from a Shafi'i point of view, a two-person marriage can never take place because you have to have consent from the girl, either it's from the woman itself or from her guardian. Okay? And even so, even let's say there is a pre-pubescent marriage that takes place, the marriage cannot be consummated until she has reached puberty. This is pretty much clear in the text. Okay, so you can actually read this across Maliki fiqh even. And that's pretty much what I have to say, actually. I think I've already pretty much covered the basis with regards to my opinion on this.
Yeah, I want to cover some other things. But look, I understand. Look, what I mean, it would be, I think, for the audience, we would all benefit, we would all learn, because it's really nice to have the opportunity to discuss with you. I mean, really, this is really a great opportunity.
Your audience is, I think they are a bit sarcastic and mocking of Islam anyway, but I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean,
I bet
that's
you your
unfortunate.
audience is sarcastic and mocking of Christianity. I mean, that just kind of goes with the territory, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So look, there's a couple of other things I want to also mention. Thaddeus, any thoughts from you while I go to the next topic?
I will just point out that Menj keeps saying, well, that was for the 13th century. It doesn't apply. Today, it seems that
because this text was written in the 13th century.
Yeah, that Allah's moral principles are not eternal, that they're dependent on society. In other words, societal law, societal culture and customs is superior.
Sorry, what was the last statement you were asking?
Please go on again, Thaddeus, just to explain further.
Yeah, well, by saying, okay, so let me rephrase it differently. By saying that this was written for the 16th or the 13th century, so it doesn't apply today, but I guess it was okay then. What you're suggesting is that moral principles are relative to cultures, which means that culture is superior to Allah in determining moral principles.
I would disagree with that statement, because this is a human interpretation of divine law. The understanding from Islam, from the primary sources, the Quran and Sunnah, is that when a woman reaches puberty, okay, the key word here is puberty, not age, right? You can actually reach puberty even if you are 12, right, or even if you are 10. Okay, so the key word here is puberty, and back in the day, 13th century, what does a 10-year-old lady do? Okay, or what does a 16-year-old lady do? The circumstances were different then. So of course, it's natural for a lady of such an age, once she has reached puberty, once she has reached her menses, to be married off. But today we don't do this, because a 10-year-old girl or even a 16-year-old girl needs to go to university. She needs to go to school. She needs to get her education. The conditions of society today is such that even a 16-year-old lady, even though she has a menses, she's not mature enough. She's not equipped enough to face the challenges. I mean, my son, he's 10 years old, but I wouldn't even go and allow him to cross the street, because I don't feel that he's ready for such responsibility. Okay, so situations change. Okay, human conditions change, human understandings change. So fiqh is dealing, or jurisprudence in this particular instance, is dealing with such situations. It's not divine law in that sense. The divine law is the ruling that. So the divine law is basically a woman can get married if she reaches puberty. But the fiqh derivation from it is that how do you define puberty? How do you define maturity? So that changes. That changes according to the ages. So the divine law remains. It's just that the situation is different. So you interpret the law.
Just one thing, Lloyd. So for next time, Menj, I would love to see any fiqh, Sharia, whatever source that defines puberty as the age for marriage, because I've never seen one. There might exist, right? I don't know everything, but I've seen many rulings. None of them relate to puberty.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, so I just want to go to this source.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So look, I mean, again, guys. So remember, this is not. I'm really not trying to gotcha you. We're just trying to say, look, here's the evidence, and just get your thoughts on acting and the ruling on marrying young girls. This is Islam QA, which is the most visited Islamic advice site in the world, right? So why is Islam allowed to marry children, girls of age below 10, without their permission? Okay. And it's a setting case of children, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now let's go have a look here. All right. So marrying a young girl before she reaches the age of adolescence is permitted in Sharia. It was narrated that there was scholarly consensus on this point. And here they quote 65:4. And those of your women as have passed the age of monthly courses, right? In this verse, we see that Allah has made the iddah in case of the divorce of a girl who does not have periods because she is young and has not reached puberty 3 months. This clearly indicates Allah has made this a valid marriage, right? And it goes on, they speak here of hadiths where Muhammad married a woman, a girl, at 6 years old, all right?
A woman.
And it says that, and it says here also that there is no minimum. Hold on, let me just find the reference here. Maybe I need to. So it says here, okay, there is nothing in the hadith of Aisha to set an age limit. So what this tells us, no age limit can be set. In other words, in Islam, there is no lower age limit for a girl to be married. There is no lower age limit. Now, in the Reliance, we see infants, literally infants in the cradle, A, married, and B, accused of having affairs with other men, having sex with other men. Do you understand the concern for us? Do you understand this is the largest Islamic advice site in the world? Do you?
Yeah, I don't recall any
Sorry?
Muslim families giving away their baby girls in marriage to strangers anyway. So
yeah, but if you
Well,
even if you don't know
whether you
I would
personally
actually-
observed it or not.
I would actually presume, actually from this understanding, keeping in mind the context of the 13th century, is that most likely, I don't know whether this is true. I would need to actually hit the books, but from what I understand, at least from what you are telling me and from what, considering the nature of Umdat as-Salik, I would say that these are probably, maybe these families, they have pledged their children in marriage to one another, maybe from as young as, I don't know, maybe maybe even before they were born. So that is why this fifth ruling was derived from. So perhaps that's what the ruling is referring to, but it definitely does not
we have a
talk
scholar
about
here,
consummation
understand?
or marriage or anything of the sort. Yeah, that's what I understand.
So, just to clarify, right? So he kept saying that I think in the 13th century, the context was blah, blah, blah. This is a 21st century website. This is not a 13th century text.
By the way,
and they're not drawing the same kind of conclusions as you. They're saying this is what is
different. Yeah. This particular page that you're showing me, this is talking about marriage. How old a woman can get married. So as I mentioned earlier, in Islam, we don't have an age limit for marriage. It's puberty, it's maturity level. So how do you define puberty and maturity levels? So back in the day, I would presume, someone who has reached their menses could get married. But in today's age, even someone who gets, a degree doesn't necessarily mean that she's fit for marriage. So yeah, so like I said, circumstances change, situations change. Yeah. For example, my own grandmother, my late grandmother.
Does it mean that we have morality that is dependent on age or on culture?
I mean, let's put it this way. Okay, my late grandmother.
but here's a question. Wait, I have a real question. So if this was okay in the 8th century, in the 7th century, right? Now Muhammad, this is Sunnah, so he did it, right? And this made this Sunnah. Are you saying it was okay then, but not now? Yet everything Muhammad did is perfect and the correct ruling for
he's still within the confines of his culture, and he's still within the confines of his culture.
So Islam is not applicable outside of Islamic culture, out of Arab culture.
It is applicable if you look at the way on how it is interpreted. You see, so I think you're conflating things a bit, with all due respect to you. So like I said, like for example, the Prophet ﷺ, he rode camels. Okay, he rode horses. Does that mean that Muslims today are forbidden from driving cars. We need to actually ride camels and horses. Do you get what I mean? So it's the same thing with marriage. So just because the Prophet married Aisha when she reached her, puberty at 9 years old, does that mean that all Muslim women should marry women, should marry girls as young as 9? So you see, the context changes, the situation changes. So that doesn't
We're
mean
talking about an
that the
obligation
Prophet
too,
is
but
not
it is
perfect.
certainly
Yeah.
permissible. And whereas this, remember, in a Western context, I mean, I think you'd agree, this is considered a crime and it is considered a sin, right? So whereas in Islam, it's considered Tuesday. Thaddeus, your thoughts before we go on.
I don't agree with you see the thing is about Western law is that you put puberty to a number, and I totally disagree with the way Western society defines puberty. So I'm not saying that I agree with having relations with a young girl. That's disgusting, okay? But you can't put a number to puberty, to maturity, okay? So so in Islam, I believe that it is divinely ordained that in God's infinite wisdom that puberty is defined according to the maturity situation. So the human condition at that time period. So Islam is totally universal for all times, for all periods. So if let's say in one time period in the 13th century,
So where was this
women could get
cancelled? I mean,
married.
where was this permission to have child brides and infant brides cancelled? Where was that no longer made permissible?
It's not cancelled as in defined by law or anything. So it's something that I believe, or I know, if you understand the Maqasid al-Sharia, Muslims will eventually come to understand that. By the way, Maqasid al-Sharia means the higher goals of the Sharia. So in the context of Maqasid, you have to understand. It's understood that situations change. So if the situation doesn't permit for marriages as young as 9, even though the 9-year-old has already reached a maturity, her menses. Therefore, we shouldn't be practicing that. So it's not wrong for someone to practice that 10 years, thousands of years, hundreds of years ago, 200 years ago. But for this current times and contemporary age, things change. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Just so, so I mean, we have to take from this that the law of Allah has changed. Okay. Thaddeus, your thoughts, please.
It is not the law of Allah. It's basically not the law of God. It's basically the human condition. Okay. There's nothing to do with whatsoever with divine will. Okay.
So, Rukia services, please, I'm going to ask you nicely to stay on topic. All right. This is not the time for that. So if you make any off-topic comments again, I'm going to put you in timeout. And then I'm going to ask the mods to consistently leave you in timeout. All right. So, okay, now, Thaddeus, your thoughts before we continue. I'm going to bring up something.
So I just wanted to, if you could pull back up the Islam QA page, I wanted to point out that they don't refer to puberty, right, as being a requirement. However you define that, Western way, non-Western way, whatever, they explicitly say that
because the particular ruling, I believe, is not talking about puberty. It's talking about whether it's permissible for someone to get married as young as 10 or below 10. So
it states here, though, if she's ready for it, if she's large enough, big enough, or if the husband thinks it's okay to, then go for it. That's really what it says at the end of the day. Thaddeus, please continue.
Yeah. So again, you're using terms, right, that sound acceptable, or at least somewhat acceptable to a Western audience, but that's not the way that Islam has ever defined the requirements. The prevailing consensus in the Sharia text is that a girl can be married at any age, and it's and then either she stays in her parents' house, right? Either she stays in her parents' house or she goes and lives with her husband. The only difference between those two is who decides when she's ready for sex. Is it her parents that decide if she's living at home, or it's her husband if she's living there? And the consensus was that if her body is physically capable of bearing the weight and size of her husband, then she is ready. There was a few people who said, nope, you can do it even with an infant. There was a few people who said that you should wait till age 9, based on the example of Aisha, but the vast majority said physical size is the determiner, not puberty, right? Not sexual maturity, not mental readiness. The girl's opinion never enters into it. It's either when the parents allow it or when the husband decides she's ready. Her opinion's never mentioned in any Sharia source I have seen. And thus, this is my challenge for you, to bring a source that actually backs up your claims about, girl being physically, mentally mature, ready to start a family, ready to take on the responsibilities of a wife, whatever. I haven't seen any of that. The only requirement that I've seen, and this is what the vast majority of scholars agree with, is that her body has to be big enough that she's not ripped to pieces when a man climbs on top of her.
Yeah.
You're asking me?
Yeah, I mean, we hope.
I'm asking you to look it up. I mean, I know it's not.
Oh, okay.
You don't have sources.
Yeah, no,
ready.
no worries. I can look it up. But yeah, basically, my understand as I've
understand
described it.
I mean, there are so many
over.
conflicting opinions. So look, there's so many conflicting opinions. We see these sources that explicitly say these things, and then you have Muslims with 10 different opinions. So this is an opportunity for us to present these issues to you. You can actually go back.
I mean, I don't care about the other 10. I don't really care about the 10 other opinions. So
but the problem is we're not only speaking with you, and so therefore there's a lot of confusion. Understand? So we hear these things all the time. So it gives you a chance to come back at some point. We can talk again, and you can present.
I guess it
deeper argument.
Sure. I guess it depends on who you talk to, I guess. So if you're talking to someone from the Middle East, perhaps they have a different understanding.
I mean, look, Ali Dawa has said this. Who else? The guy with the big bushy beard, what's his face? He said it. Daniel Hakikachu, he said it. It's all good to go. Understand? So you've got, if you've watched on YouTube, you've seen various videos where these guys all make it okay, right? I mean, so they all claim it's fine. Ali Dawa would give his 9-year-old girl away if he thought she was ready for it. So fine. Understand? So we see all of these conflicting things. So it will be great to get a source.
I don't totally disagree with what Ali Dawa says. I guess it depends on the context and the situation. If my
Muhammad Ijab was the other guy.
If my 9-year-old daughter is ready for marriage, and I feel that she'll be married off to a wonderful man, then I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be the case. But of course, that depends highly on the context and the situation at the time.
Right. But understand, I mean, it would be nice to understand from our perspective, from our laws and morals, this is both sinful as well as illegal. So, I mean, you need to understand this is
in the Bible. Can you show me from the New Testament where it is sinful and inappropriate for someone to be married off at puberty for a young woman?
This is not in our laws. We're discussing law here. Understand, this is not something that is legal or considered moral within our legal system or in our morals.
Because you said
so Christianity isn't a system of laws. So we don't have, there's not like explicit text against most things that are in our laws, because that's not the purpose of the Bible. The Bible isn't here to give us a legal framework. It's to establish moral principles. And the guiding moral principles behind all laws are to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And from that, we can see that it would be, from that alone, and we could go to more explicit references, but from that alone, we could see that it would be inappropriate, immoral, and disgusting to abuse a little child by marrying them before they are mentally, physically, socially mature.
So are you saying that my late grandmother, who was 14 years old when she married my grandfather,
Menj, this is not the time to Menj. This is not the time.
She was abused and raped when she was married off. I'm just asking.
Emi and Jay, pause a second. Emi and Jay, pause a second, please. This is not the time for that. Understand? We're discussing what we can read within the law. You're saying the law is A. We've got sources that say the law is B. Understand? Now, depending, what if Group A, right, doesn't come to power or whatever, and Group B that permits diddling infants of 3 months old, what if they are the ones who seize the reins of power? Then that becomes the law because that's what they believe. All right? Understand? So the problem is you've got...
No, the thing is...
So let's move to a different topic. I want to move to a different topic.
can I insert a bit? Just
30
just
seconds.
to
30
clarify the
seconds.
point.
Then we move to another topic.
Right.
Go.
So the thing is, you need to actually show evidence that the second group who allows for diddling little babies is the consensus majority of of the Muslim.
We don't have to show the majority. They just need to be. We know what their views are. The views are right here. We've seen them. Islam QA is a majority view. Okay, so K13.8. Puberty applies to a person after the first wet dream or upon becoming 15, okay, lunar years old, or
Right.
when her girl has her first menstrual period or she's pregnant. So a girl reaches puberty when she has her first menstrual period or she falls pregnant. Now, of course, the difficulty here is that you don't know if she hasn't reached puberty yet, but the man slept with her, she fell pregnant. So, oh, there you go. That was puberty. She clearly was old. So, Thaddeus, your thoughts on this, please.
Well, I mean, in one way, this shows some insight into how babies are made, because a woman can get pregnant on her very first menstrual cycle, which means she would never have a discharge, never go through a period. So in one case, it shows some understanding there, but in the other, it also clearly shows that it is normal for people to be having sex with girls who have not yet reached menstruation.
Or puberty, because she would fall pregnant. You know that she's pregnant when she falls pregnant. You know that she's reached puberty when she falls pregnant, which means you didn't know at the time. Do you understand the condition that is implicit here, the logic here, Menj?
It doesn't make any sense to me, because in order to ascertain that a woman has achieved maturity, she has to one of them is basically she has to go through a first menstrual period. So if she has not gone through a menstrual period, how would we know that
this permits it? Do you understand that this? Do you understand this? Obviously,
then,
oh boy.
Yeah, but then that will cancel out the marriage, the consummation of marriage. So yeah, it's like basically it's like putting the chicken before the egg, or did the egg come before the chicken? Okay. Yeah.
No, that's fine, but do you understand the problem in that? Now I want to look at one more topic. I mean, we'll wind down. We'll finish in 10 minutes. So I want to look at one more topic. I'm not going to go into huge depth. We can discuss this again, but again, this is a concern for us. On a moral level, this is a deep concern for us, right? This is a section in the Reliance on lying, and they speak of permissible lying and obligatory lying. And they speak here of in circumventing those forbidding the permissible. Now, of course, whatever is permissible in the Sharia, for instance, what we do online is we try to prevent the spread of Islam, of course. So therefore, it is permissible to prevent this, to circumvent this. And this implies, of course, that lying then becomes permissible. Okay. So I'm just going to go and show the audience a little bit of this stuff. And, right. Permissible lying. Now, he who settles disagreements between people to bring about good. Now, the good here is defined as what obviously benefits Islam, what brings the Sharia, or says something commendable is not a liar. Now, the problem is, now, for instance, we would read this by saying that when a Muslim is trying to settle a disagreement, he can lie because that is not considered a lie. Do you understand the concern for us? I mean, before I get into depth here, Thaddeus, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Menj.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, actually, I don't know if we'll look at more details, but we can see explicitly taught here, and for that matter, in Muhammad's own words, that lying is permissible in certain circumstances in Islam, and in fact becomes obligatory in certain circumstances as well. And that doesn't seem right to me. Maybe there's an explanation which Menj will help us out with here in a second.
See,
but
now notice it, he permitted untruth in settling disagreements. Now, this is what they tell us, that Muhammad permitted untruth in settling disagreements. This is an explicit statement that lying is permissible for a given interest. And then Ghazali says, when it is possible to achieve such an aim by lying, but not by telling the truth, it is permissible to lie if attaining the goal is permissible. Understand? And then it is obligatory to lie if the goal is obligatory. Now, this is obligatory lying. We can go into much more depth, but Thaddeus, last statement, and then I'll leave it over to Menj to speak, if I may. Thaddeus, your thoughts, and then I'll leave it to Emmy and Jay. Yeah.
Yeah, I
so
think I would just be repeating myself. I have a problem with this, and I'd
Okay.
like the explanation.
Yeah, your thoughts. So Emmy and Jay, over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, so about lying, right, in Islam, I think some of your fans here are saying taqiyya. So taqiyya is not an Islamic doctrine; it's a Shia doctrine, and of course, we reject it. I actually have books on that refuting the idea of taqiyya. So with regards to lying in Islam, so as the hadith itself in this very text says, there's only 3 conditions which allow for it. So I mean, let's put it frankly, okay? If your wife were to dress something really ugly and you really dislike it, but you don't want to hurt her feelings, are you going to tell her that that she looks ugly and she should change her clothes? Just tell me frankly,
Yeah, but
honestly. Will you actually
no,
tell
that's
her
one
that?
example. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just answer yes or no. Will you actually tell her, oh, my dear, you look super ugly in that clothes and I don't like it. Please change your clothes. Will you actually tell that to your wife? I mean, honestly, I'll
You
tell you
don't
frankly, I
look-
will never tell that. I will never say that to my own wife.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that is not the only circumstances where this applies. I
Yeah,
mean, we all understand. We all
Yes, I know. I'm
sympathize with
going
that
into that.
circumstance.
I'm going into that. Yes, I'm going into that. So that's one particular circumstance. The other circumstance is war. Okay, so in war, the Prophet himself said that war is deceit. So war is in order to achieve, basically to achieve a military objective, you can't tell the truth. Are you going to say to the enemy, "Oh, look, we have 1,000, personnel
Why would you
behind
be
me, and we
talking
have
to
this,
the
this,
enemy?
this, this. We have this, and we have this, that. So, and we're coming for you."
Yeah, but the context we're speaking of is we're settling disagreements, and also remember we are in the Dar al Harb.
I'm getting to that.
Right? We're in the house of war. Islam is permanently at war.
I know. I'm getting to that. So that's the second circumstance. The third circumstance is, what was it again? Can you scroll up and show me the hadith? Yeah, settling disagreements. So basically, disagreements would usually, transactions.
Do we disagree right now? I mean, we are disagreeing. So would that be context here?
No, this is different because in this when it says that there's certain disagreements, it doesn't mean religious discourse or
why not?
Why not? Yeah,
opposing opinions. Okay, so no,
we have disagreements. I mean, look, we disagree on. Look, I mean, we know that we have different views on various topics, right? So to smooth that over, this obviously this tells. We read this and say that you're allowed to lie for the purpose of creating agreement, right? Dishonestly. I mean, that's how we would interpret this. Do you see the concern for us?
Well, like I said, for example, if you have a dispute with your neighbor and your neighbor, if you think that things could get worse by telling the truth, are you going to say the truth? That's the question. Because there are certain situations where you can't say the truth all the time. So in this understanding of faith, it is permissible to lie. Well, not to lie. I would say to just say something of a untruth, I would say, in order to maintain relations. Okay, to maintain relations. So that's basically the end goal of this particular faith. It doesn't mean that you have to lie every single time to get yourself out of a situation. Okay, or
no, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, I would like. Look, understand. This is understood. Yeah. No. Well, look, I fully understand. I mean, I appreciate your feedback. That's why I have you here, and that's what we're hoping to get.
Yes.
I want to do 2 things. One, I'm going to show, and then we have guys in 5 minutes. We'll close up. But this is also something disturbing. I'm choosing specific things. Right. Curse means to drive away a thing from Allah. This applies to things which are already distant from Allah, like infidelity. Now, Thaddeus and I are infidels. It is lawful to curse the unbelievers and oppressors with such words as are permitted by the Sharia.
Yeah.
Curse especially upon a people as curse upon the Jews and curse upon the Christians. I mean, that's disturbing. And this is Ghazali, right? The Hujjat al-Islam, the proof of Islam. But for us, but we can discuss this another time, right? But what I want to do is, okay, your thoughts on that. Just your thoughts on that. Take 1 minute, and then I'll go to a little bit more Ghazali. But your thoughts on that.
I think it's in Jewish law. I think where the Jews say, thank God that I'm a Jew and not a goyim. So If you can tolerate that, then why can't you tolerate this?
Yeah, but cursing. So those are curses, right? Which obviously we would find offensive. You can appreciate that, right?
Yeah, I would just say there's a substantial difference between saying, thank God I'm not an unbeliever, I'm not an outsider, however you want to put that, and saying, I bring curses down on the unbelievers, on the outsiders. Seems to be quite a bit different to me.
No, I would consider them to be in the same context anyway, so no difference to me.
Okay, well that's look, I mean, I'm not here to argue about these things. I'm just looking to present the different perspectives, but hopefully you can see our perspective. Understand that the one is actively cursing, whatever form those curses take, and the other is saying, hey, well, at least I'm not Iranian or something. You know, that's okay, right? Okay, false speaking is permissible. Sometimes false speaking or lying becomes compulsory. And in some places, lying is better than speaking the truth. And you can say falsehood in a battle or to compromise between two parties, and then false speaking or lying is lawful. Now, the Prophet allows false speaking to bring a compromise between two parties. And he who settles disputes between two parties is not a liar. So,
the same thing from
sorry?
Repeating the same thing from the previous.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry, your audio is very muffled. Say again, please.
No, it's basically repeating the same thing from the text, the previous text that you showed me.
So now we've got corroboration. Understand?
Yeah, I have no problems with this.
Now, the lie which is spoken to settle the matters between two contending parties is not written. Now, that tells us that when there's a disagreement, like, for instance, Muslim apologists, Christian apologists, they have a disagreement. The lie that the Muslim tells here, according to this text, the lie is not written. It is not. So in other words, Allah doesn't record this as a sin against the Muslim because it brings peace. Do you understand the context here? Doesn't look good.
Muslims are not allowed to tell lies anyway.
1 second. Thaddeus, your thought before I go on to Emir and Jay. Thaddeus, your thought?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with him that it's essentially saying the same thing as the other text, which means that these two different Sharia texts are in agreement here. And I do have a problem with this. Maybe Muslim apologist doesn't, but I do have a problem with saying that there are certain circumstances where it is better to lie, where it's obligatory to lie, because I don't think that that's actually true. For example, you said, like, what are you going to do? Tell your enemy in war how many tanks you have and where you're sending them? No, you just don't say anything, right? You don't have to be in communication with your enemy in war. You don't have to be sending false information. And frankly, your enemy would be really stupid to believe you if you send information anyway.
Yeah.
But that is the purpose of war, isn't it?
So, NJ, 1 minute to your answer, please, and then I'll just finish with this. I'll just finish with this section, please. Yeah, your answer. Yeah. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, there are circumstances to lying. Okay. I'm not going to tell my wife that she's wearing an ugly dress and please change. All right. So, I don't want to offend her, obviously. Otherwise, I'll be sleeping outside. Okay. And there are circumstances where you, in war, okay, you don't tell the enemy that you have X number of tanks and X number of personnel coming after you, and what time and what date am I coming after you. Yeah. So you can't tell the truth at the time.
Look, that's obviously an extreme context. I mean, but this doesn't specify only extreme contexts.
Yeah.
Right?
So
this is a general.
Like I said, like I said, when it comes to discourse between a Muslim and a Christian, obviously you can tell lies because that the context doesn't justify it. And if it's settling a dispute with a neighbor, and you see that the situation calls for smoothing things over, so to speak, and let's say, for example, okay, the dog comes onto the neighbor's lawn, right, and then it causes a lot of problems, and you want to smoothen things.
But we could use diplomacy for that, as opposed to outright lying. Whereas this legal ruling commits lying rather than diplomacy.
The thing is, diplomacy does, involve an element of lying as well, because you need to smooth things over. So it's not.
Well, I mean, but lying has consequences, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so look.
It all depends on the situation. Okay, so if in a discourse like this between me and you, obviously I can't tell lies. Okay, I can't be lying right now. Oh, Islam is this and that, and I can lie about it, because I mean the point is to tell the truth, because I'm an apologist. Why should I lie about something about Islam? You see, it doesn't
Fully
meet the
understood.
objective.
Let's pause a moment, but understand, as we read this states that lying is obligatory. Understand? So this is us for us. It's a great concern.
So the
I want to
context
finish off
of
with
it.
this.
Yeah. Now,
So,
can I interject? Can I clarify
if
that?
I can just read this.
Yeah, okay,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, let me finish with this, and then we'll take like 1 minute to just do a finish wrap up. There is no sin in that falsehood which benefits a Muslim or removes a harm from him. And the Prophet said, he who commits fornication shall keep it secret with the secrecy of Allah. And to disclose an obscene act is also an obscene act. Every man should save his life and his honor, even taking recourse to falsehood, which is lying. Right? And if harm is caused more than benefit in case of speaking the truth, you may avoid speaking the truth. And uttering a dual word, in other words, a word that is misleading, saves him from falsehood. So a deceptive word saves you from having to blatantly lie, because that's covered again in the. So Menj, let's give you 60 seconds, your last thoughts, and then I want to end off. I'll give Thaddeus the last word.
Yeah, I just want to clarify on what it is meant by obligatory lying. So this actually involves life-threatening situations. Like, for example, if someone has a sword,
it doesn't specify that. It does not specify that at all.
Yeah, obviously it doesn't, because this is very basic. But there are fiqh books which actually explain the situations. Okay, so if you look into these fiqh sources, there are situations where it is obligatory for you to lie. Like, for example, not to save a life. Okay. To prevent an evil from happening.
Those are extreme situations, but those are not specified here as the only situations. I've never seen rulings to that effect.
Yeah, like I said, this fiqh manual doesn't explain the details. You need to actually look into other fiqh books.
This is supposed to explain the details. I mean, this. Yeah. Understood. But look, we can hopefully have this conversation again, and then we can go through these more depth. Thaddeus, last word to you, if you don't mind, Muslim apologist, because I have to run to something. So, Thaddeus, last word to you.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me on today, and thank you to the Muslim apologist for coming on and being willing to have this chat and this discussion.
Right.
I know Lloyd has been waiting for quite some time to find a Muslim who is willing to come and look at the Sharia sources and respond to them. So we thank you for coming on. My thoughts here, we've seen a variety of things which we as Christians have problems too. We got some attempt to explain some of them. Others, we just heard, I have no problem with that. And well, at least we're clearly demarking differences between us when we have disagreements like that.
Okay, fair enough.
So can you understand, me and Jay, that these issues are ones which we can't build a bridge over these contradictions or these concerns. Do you understand? This is a place where we are not going to find any kind of moral, what's the word? Any way to reconcile these. We're not going to find any kind of reconciliation. We're not going to find any way to.
My advice to you especially is just stop reading As-Salik, because As-Salik is totally outdated. Okay, even Hidayah is totally outdated. You should actually read more contemporary sources.
The Hidayah is considered the prime legal text for the Hanafi school. I mean, there's far too many attestations.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So let us know.
Yeah,
so which book should we be reading? Which one should we read?
Yeah,
which one
that would
should
be
we read?
my takeaway questions. What book should we go to?
Yeah, you can try Yusuf Al-Qaradawi. I think he has a fiqh book on. I have the book somewhere here actually. No, sorry, not here. It's at my studio. Yeah, you can actually try that.
Qaradawi.
Yusuf Al-Qaradawi. Yes, Qaradawi is a good start. I think Ramadan Al-Buti has some fiqh books as well. You can try that as well. Yeah, I think that those are the scholars off my head. There are a few others, but unfortunately they are Malaysian, so they write in the Malay language. But I can translate them for you, so it's not an issue.
Okay.
So there are Malaysian sources as well, so you can actually look at that, because we have developed our own unique understanding of fiqh, which is totally different.
Well, look, it might be fine in Malaysia, but understand, outside of Malaysia, other people are using the books I've showed, and that's what we are dealing with. So Malaysian Islam might be just fantastic. The problem is, outside, we seem to have problems. Do you understand the issue?
It's not Malaysian Islam, it's still Islam. It's just that we adapt it according to our own situation, our Nusantara region. Okay, so it's not just limited to Malaysia, but it's also Indonesia, Brunei, Singapore, Southern Thai is a very large region, so it's not enclosed. Okay.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so look, guys, we have to end here. Thank you very much, Menj. We're actually very grateful that you came on. We had the chance to have this talk.
Okay.
Let's maybe talk
I
again
guess
in January. I really appreciate
I would
it.
say, yeah, surprisingly, I'm actually glad that I've come on, and I think it has been quite a fruitful discussion. So yeah.
No, I mean, look, I'm really not here to gotcha you. I really want to say, as I said to you before, I want to present the issues we have, the concerns we have.
Yeah.
We are told we have nothing to fear, but we look at this and go, man, this is, sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, as I said, I'm a bit ill-equipped because I just wanted a casual discussion, so I didn't really get into it deeply as much as I would like.
No,
but I hope I
fine.
pretty much covered the bases, so to speak. So for those that you were asking me for sources, it's pretty much off my head. Some I don't even
understand.
recall. So,
no, you weren't expected to. You weren't expected. At least we got your honest answers. And well, I'm not expecting you to know everything. I don't. Thaddeus doesn't. You don't. We need to go back and look, and we will discuss again. But I thought the audience would benefit from an honest, open discussion. So Thaddeus, last word, and then I need to call it a night. So thank you.
I think that this was great, and I look forward to doing it again. And I'll be in touch, Muslim apologists, via email to get something scheduled on my channel. I apologize about not getting back to you.
Sure. I was thinking,
so guys,
by the way, before we end this, I would like to openly extend an invitation for either or both of you to come onto my channel as well at different times or different schedules. Depends. Maybe we can set something out as well. All right? Yeah.
Okay.
I think dialogue is important.
So,
I mean, as a Muslim apologist, even though I know that what your position is with regards to Islam, but I think it's important that I invite the opponents as well onto my channel so that we could actually have a proper dialogue and understanding between each other. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you. So everyone, thank you very much. Again, Menj, thank you. My gratitude. You came on at 10 p.m. for you. It's 11:30 now. So you sacrificed to come on later. Yeah.
It's quite late right now. Yeah, it's 11:37 p.m. right
11:30. Yeah. So it was very late for you. So we do appreciate it that you accommodated us, and thank you for that. Much appreciated. I hope the audience can see we tried to give everyone time to speak. We were fair. We were not here to gang up on you, but to get honest answers. And thank you.
I don't get that feeling at all. And I believe that for all claims and purposes, I believe that you were sincere. Okay, you are sincere in trying to find the truth. Okay, as I would say. Okay, it's from your New Testament anyway. Know the truth. The truth will set you free. All right. Yeah.
Agreed. So everyone, thank you and Merry Christmas. If I don't see you guys all before Christmas, although I may not. But anyway, thank you all. No, I will be online. I will be online before then. But thank you guys. Menj, thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend further. Thaddeus, thank you for coming on. I appreciate the input. And everyone, have a wonderful holiday season. And of course, we'll be in touch before Christmas again. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Good night and bye.
Right.